joined by James Christian of House of Lords. How are you today, James?
Very good, Jay. How about you?
Oh, doing fantastic. Reminiscing about Malibu and Burbank. It's a great thing. I know you're now down in West Palm Beach, Florida, so you were literally bi-coastal here. Give us an idea. I know House of Lords history, but give us a little idea, James Christian. When did you first start singing, get involved in music, and who were your musical heroes that helped you on this path?
Well, my start was probably maybe a week after I saw the Ed Sullivan Show with the Beatles, to give you an indication just how old I am. But my passion at that time was to be a baseball player, and that just changed instantly after I saw what I saw on TV. And
a million screaming girls will change it.
Oh, my God. It was everything. Everything that I saw was just, it clicked. I said, I know what my life, work needs to be at this point. So I asked my mom to give me guitar lessons. I wanted to start there. And the singing part of it I was already doing prior to that, but never taking it seriously. And one thing just led to another. I was always a kid in high school who had the guitar in their hand and would play at parties. And no matter what, I was, doing something that had to do with music from that point on in my life. But things did change, and I went from guitar to just being a lead singer, but that didn't happen till I was in my 20s.
And who were some of the other, musical, heroes as far as vocalists go? And what was that first big arena show you saw that really blew your mind? Well,
the second band that really transitioned me from the Beatles was Led Zeppelin. And that was probably the major turning point for me of where my direction would go as a singer. When I heard Robert Plant sing, I thought this was the most incredible thing I'd ever heard. He didn't even sound human. And I loved that about him. And the mystique was great. So I tried to pattern myself to do Robert Plant songs or Led Zeppelin songs in my cover group. So we were doing pretty much tribute bands before tribute bands were even popular. And that's where I started to gain recognition from a lot of local bands who were looking for singers. And one thing led to another. I got into a band called Jasper Rap in Connecticut, which was the #1 band in the tri-state area. We put out a single. We had a hit #1 song with that. And when I say #1, it was tri-state #1 because the record company was actually Subway, which is now the Subway sandwiches. We actually did their first commercial for them in New Haven because they were based out of Milford, Connecticut, which is my hometown. And I did their first commercial for Subway, and then they loved what we did, so they actually backed a single. And that single went #1 in tri-state area. And the first concert I ever saw was Jethro Tull. And you couldn't have seen a better concert at that time because he was another icon. He walked out on the stage with the flute and his foot on his knee, and it was just an amazing concert. The musicians were great, and ever since I've just been hooked on rock music.
Well, that is a great way to start. I likewise watched the TV and started a band the day after that Beatles show, and I speak to so many bands and artists, and it seems like there must have been a million garage bands formed the next day. I mean, musical instrument sales must have gone through the roof.
Oh, my God. It's just, for those of us who really had a passion for music, that was a defining moment. So,
yeah, that was the atom bomb right there. Yep. Well, I know House of Lords, of course, started in '89, and Greg Giuffria from, of course, Angel, and then his Giuffria band, was a foundational part of this. Tell us how you met Greg and how House of Lords, originally came together.
The House of Lords was already completed. They were a complete band without a name, by the way. They weren't called House of Lords till I got in the group. But Gene Simmons had the concept in his head that he wanted to put together a band with Greg, with Chuck Wright, Landon Cordola, and Ken Mary. but he wasn't. He wanted to replace the singer. So they went through an extensive searching for a singer. And about 6 months prior to that, I had sent a cassette tape to Chuck Wright, and he never met with me in person. I just literally left it at his door, at his apartment. And 6 months later, I was with a group called LA Rocks in Los Angeles, and we were doing showcases, and we needed a bass player, so they hired Chuck. And so when we started going through the songs, and I started singing, Chuck said, "Man, you sound so familiar. I've heard your voice before." And I mentioned to him that I did drop off a tape to his house. And he goes, "My God," he goes, "I've been looking for you for the last 5 months because, we've got this new project going on with House of Lords." But it wasn't called House of Lords, but that, the band I'm referring to. Yeah. So that week, he took me to Vince Neil's bachelor party, which was on a yacht going off of Marina Del Rey. So I got to meet every rock star imaginable, from Billy Idol to, you name it, Motley Crue. Everyone was on this trip. And Chuck pretty much introduced me to the world that way, because really before that I was a greenhorn, really was not involved in that caliber of music or musicians. I came out of Connecticut and, really just on a wing and a prayer came out to L.A. to try to find something. So after that, that day, I met with Greg Giuffria the next day, and Greg asked me to sing a few songs from the actual first album, and I sang 2 songs, and he was, sold on what I did. So the next step was to meet Gene Simmons. I was invited to his house, and I spent an hour with Gene, and I thought I was going in for a college application. I was asked so many questions. And not all of them pertain to music, believe it or not. It pertained to life and the kind of person you are, and camaraderie, and all of the different things that really didn't have anything to do with music, but in a sense had to do with being in a band. So after an hour with Gene, and they had recorded the 2 songs that I did with Greg and played it for Gene, and I left his home, and that evening I got a call that they wanted me to be the singer. So it changed my life, and pretty much in a matter of a week, going from having absolutely nothing to having everything I ever dreamed of happened in 1 week.
Well, that's 2 certain, veterans, 2 wise men to learn from. Obviously,
yeah.
Greg Giuffria had gone through the frustrating situation of Angel, not quite breaking to the level that, one had hoped. And then Gene Simmons, who, of course, had obviously been involved with Angel, but, his storied career over the years of, withstanding band member changes and, changes in trends and record labels and all that. So what does it mean to be able to, or how important is it to have mentors in the business that have deep roots, have a lot of experience in the highs and the lows of what you're trying to do?
It's incredibly important to have mentors, and Gene was an incredible one. Now, he really didn't have to go and do all the things he did for me. He knew I was the new guy in the group and the guy that had the least experience, and yet he took me out on promotional tours himself. He literally came with me to interviews, took me to events, and introduced me as the new singer. Like, he literally took me under his wing and actually taught me how to do interviews, what to say, what not to say. I learned everything from him, and I also found out that he was just an incredibly nice guy, not the demonic rock singer or rock bass player that you see on stage, but a businessman with an incredibly great sense for business.
Well, we certainly see that, and he takes his knock sometimes as how commercialized, Kiss has done in their merchandising. But then again, like he says, once you put your name on a T-shirt, you're in competition with me. He just does it better. So,
yeah.
I mean, he is definitely taken them to super levels. And besides House of Lords, he's had his hand in in a lot of bands. So he's obviously very passionate about this. Now, working with, like I say, the new band and the new unit, and like you say, you're greener than others. What was the level of dedication or commitment you immediately sensed that was required from you, almost like a athlete going for the championship, that you had to step up in every way? It's not just, like you say, on stage, but traveling and the media and the interpersonal band relationships and songwriting and all those different levels. What type of dedication was immediately asked of you?
Well, in the very beginning, what was asked of me was to sing to do the vocals on the record in 1 week, and I thought usually you would get like a month to do an album, but they were under the gun and they had a release date and everything. So the first thing I had to do was get the material under my belt, and then have 7 days in the studio with Andy Johns, of all people, who was, another guy that I knew of in my life, and people that he worked with were like incredible singers. So I knew that this guy was no slouch, and what I had to do had to be important. So I really came in prepared and was able to do it in 7 days. That was my first challenge. And the next challenge was the tour schedule, because we had gone out with Cheap Trick, and these guys are notorious for just touring and touring and touring and taking very few days off. Yeah. So, I was used to sing in nightclub bands 5-6 nights a week, 3 sets a night. So I had an idea of what kind of stamina I would have on the road. But when you're doing an hour set and you're on 20, you're not, you see, in a nightclub, you might be doing, 3 sets, but you're laying back most of the time. You're not really putting out, 150%.
Right.
So that part of it, the first week was a little rough. And after that, I started falling into place, realizing I couldn't party every night. I had to keep myself in shape. Although Robin and Nielsen, Rick Nielsen, had no trouble partying every night, and they were still able to do it. So, but they were veterans at it. They were doing this for years and years. And that's where I got my feet wet, and it was great learning ground for me because I was able to sustain that whole tour without any mishaps, without getting sick, without missing a show.
Well, a lot of the new kids today with the internet, it's kind of, they expect to be able to just point and click and achieve things with all these shortcuts. Obviously, you come from the old school of knowing of not only the dedication of a Rick Nielsen or Robin Zander or Gene Simmons or Greg Giuffria, but just the dedication it takes from just songwriting or just maximizing your vocals or your live performance or the withstanding the pressures of writing or recording under the gun or traveling the world and dealing with all these time zones. What advice do you give to those young singers and young bands today of not only the mindset but the dedication and the sacrifice that's needed to even have a shot at anything today?
Well, the most important thing is the dedication and the realization that you're not superhuman. You just can't go out there and mistreat every part of your body. And I know it's very tempting when you're on the road to want to do all the things that you think rock performers are doing, and that is having the time of their lives. I had the time of my life, but I also, I brought it back. I took it down quite a few notches in the very beginning, and got myself in really good shape to do these things. I was a smoker. I stopped smoking. I never ran or jogged before I started jogging. I started doing all the things that I thought I would need to do to sustain myself. And now I'm 60 years old and I'm still doing it. Obviously, I've definitely taken it down a notch, a half step as far as keys go. But, that's not bad for being 60 years old and still being able to go out there and perform.
Sure.
Something to be said for taking care of the body.
Well, indestructible is the name of the game, and that's what it's about, is pacing yourself and being a survivor and still standing, moving boldly forward today. Tell us about, the making of this album, and, you're known for the powerful hooks and the melodies, and the grandiose arrangements. But tell us what some of these songs are about and how this album was made.
Sure. Well, this particular album came off the heels of Precious Metal, which was only released a year prior. So Indestructible was released almost a year to the day, and a lot of people were just going, "Wow, why so quick?" And what did we expect? Did you just throw this together? Are they songs that were left over from Precious Metal, and you just wanted to get it out there? And all the above, or no? We took the time to write this record, 6 months, and we took 3 months to record it. And what we have is an accumulation of material from the time we started in 2006 till now. All of this stuff is brand new stuff, but we really evolved in the songwriting and of what we do. And I think we've really latched on to what the sound of House of Lords 2015 is all about. It's still melodic, it's still grandiose, but the guitars now play a much more prominent place in the mix of what we sound like. And the reason is because we have a guitar hero on stage with us, and that is Jimmy Bell. He's one of the best I've ever heard in my life. And you just can't put a band together around and have him in the background. He is the forefront guitar player, and the keyboards have to take the back seat. So this album is much heavier, and the lyrical content right now is a little bit heavier than we've done in the past also. But it would depend on what song you'd want to know about. Like, if it was Go to Hell, the song is about how people would sell their soul out for anything, whether it be money, a position, or whatever. A lot of people thought the song was about go to hell, meaning a religious connotation, but it's not. It's just meaning how people in society would cheat and steal and do whatever they have to get to the top. And we call that selling your soul, or whatever. So It's just a play on words.
How about 100 miles per hour?
That song is just about letting loose and feeling like you just want to get away from everything in life. You want to be able to get behind your car and feel like you're speeding at a pace of 100 miles an hour, and everything is left behind you. It's just a fun song with just images of what it is like. You want to feel like you've never felt before, and you want to go 100 miles an hour. You love, the feeling of speed.
Sure. And Ain't Suicidal?
Ain't Suicidal is exactly what the title suggests. I ain't suicidal, not I am suicidal, meaning that the reaper will lose, I'll have won. And that's just the message is, even though we all have to go through it and we all have our down periods, but I'm never going to be suicidal. I will always be the one that wins.
And how about Die to Tell?
Die to Tell. I got to find those lyrics. Hold on, because that's a little bit more intricate as far as that. Can we move on to another one? Because
Talk about the title track and why Indestructible is the perfect title for the album.
Well, Indestructible, again, the title says it all. But for us, in the past 10 years, because it is a new formation of House of Lords, I've always gotten the critique that, well, it's not really House of Lords because Greg and Ken and Lanny are not in the band. And it took quite a few years before people started not saying that. And now at this point, 10 years on, with six new albums under our belt, I felt that it was a bold statement to make. It's like we've lasted 6 albums with the same lineup. We are indestructible at this point. And even though I loved the early House of Lords, I love the new House of Lords just as much. They're just different, It's the same band, different musicians. That's the way I look at it.
Sure. And I know you have a really strong unit with BJ on drums and Chris on bass, but tell us what makes Jimmy Bell so special as a guitarist and how you found him and how he's developed into such a strong part of what you do.
Okay, well, a lot of people don't know, but Jimmy was second in line to be Ozzy's guitar player when Ozzy picked Zakk Wylde. So Jimmy was number two. And back then, I guess it was just the look that they were looking for with Zach, with the long blonde hair, and he fit the contrast of Ozzy, which was more the dark person, and Zach was the blonde guy. So, but Jimmy is like, if you looked at Jimmy, he looked like a version of Tony Iommi. He's a left-handed guitar player, very intimidating looking on stage, although he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And he's one of the most intense guitar players I've ever heard. I mean, I've heard guitar players rip and shred, but I've never heard them actually do it quite as well as Jimmy does it. He's incredibly clean and meticulous with his guitar playing. And his chords and riffs remind me of the days of Ritchie Blackmore. That's how much I love the patterns of guitar riffs that he comes up with. They're the kind that every guitar kid would love to learn. Kid growing up learning to play guitar would want to pick up his guitar and learn these chords the same way I did with Smoke on the Water or stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, it's always great to find those compatriots that really share your vision, have the mindset, and these days, in a changing industry, give you that strong unit. And in closing, James, the business is evolved almost completely from the beginning of House of Lords. What's almost undefinable. How much change has gone on with the record labels and the record stores and the way our people are consuming music. And you and I both know and grew up, consuming music at a voracious appetite. What message do you have to the younger generations out there to encourage them to, support these artists and support these companies and, pay for music and, go to the shows? It's none of this stuff is made for free, and if people just steal it, everything will go away. So what message or encouragement do you have to the young generation to keep this music business alive?
Well, my only message would be if anything that you do in life, if you create something, you have to think of it as something that you do, like creating a piece of music. It's almost like stealing when you lift it from the internet and take it from someone when, it is their work. And every time that you do that, you're really just taking from what they do. Same thing with downloading of movies. I know that there's a lot of sites where you could actually download a movie and watch it for free. I mean, somebody has to pay for all of these things, and it really takes a little bit more integrity to walk away from that. But to keep music alive and for artists to keep doing it the way it's being done now, which is online, a lot of downloading going on, a lot less CD sales are being made and more downloads. It's an honor system, I think, and you have to kind of believe that what you're doing is honorable. And I encourage that more than to just, take someone's property.
Well, thank you so much. Let's keep that music alive. James, you and House of Lords are indestructible. We'll spread the news on the new album. Can't wait to see you perform it live, and please keep on rocking.
Thank you. And we'll be at Whiskey A Go-Go. I believe it's on September 17th.
Well, we can't wait to see you.
Awesome.